update because I haven't really updated any information on my sessions for a while. I think the last update I had was for session 4 of City of Devils, and I think we're now up to session 9, I think. Because the last thing I had records for was 7. I know we did one after that, which was 8, and then the one we did recently, I think yesterday, was actually 9. So it was a alright session, I guess. It wasn't as good as I wanted it to be. It's honestly kind of shaping up to be sort of because we're ending the last chapter or the first chapter, but it of this sort of plot. So it sort of goes, okay, chapter 1, and then chapter 2, 3, 4. I might do a 5th one, depending on. I might not make it as long as I wanted. But the whole thing was, the session was actually focused on Xanthus the mage and the investigation team sort of going to his landlord's building and investigating to see if they can find out he's a demon. And the really annoying thing about it is that Jean basically has this thing where he can see into the twilight. And I'm not really sure how to interpret that because it's supposed to be a lot more vague than I'm making it. Like, I want to try and make it seem like he's actually hallucinating because it's not supposed to be like clear, and yet the only thing I can really do is tell him, oh, well, this is what you see. But I really don't want it to be like that because then he's basically just getting some kind of power for free. And it's not really supposed to be a power. It's supposed to be he's literally, crazy because he died once or almost died once, and he now has the ability to see these things. And I'm not sure how okay I am with that sort of thing because it really makes him like, because at least with Xanthus, he's a mage. He has to turn on mage sight to see these kind of things. Whereas, Jean just has normal vision and he's able to see these things and he fights them and stuff. And I don't know. I mean, that's one of the things that bothered me about Jean's character is that he has this derangement that doesn't really feel like a disadvantage at all. And I've been trying to figure out how to do that, but it's really hard for me to describe it the way I actually want it to seem. Like, I want it to seem like he's hallucinating, but the fact is that even if I make it seem like a hallucination, he knows that it's real and that it's not actually like fake. Like, he knows there are ghosts and monsters. So if he sees a monster, he's not going to be like, oh, that's not really there. He knows it's really there. So it's kind of, there's no point to me trying to fool him. And he just always uses it to his advantage no matter what. And I mean, I want to try to convince him to kill an innocent person because that would be bad. And I want it to be like, okay, your ability to see these horrible things actually has a disadvantage. And you actually just murdered somebody who actually isn't a monster because they look like a monster to you. Or something like that would be interesting to me. But the way it's working now, I'm really just not happy with it. Um, Especially in that instance where these are supposed to be demons who have a cover, like are secret, and he can just see through it without any effort. At least Xanthus has to, cast a spell on them to determine what they truly are. But the fact that he could see through these things, to me, is just a bit unfair. And I mean, in general, it's not like everyone in the campaign is trying to be fair. But there are certain things I really think are people just literally trying to be unfair, and I'll get to more of that later. Um, so then they go into the building, and Otto and John just sort of talk to this guy, and they leave. And then Xanthus has a really long conversation with the demon landlord, who, he pretty much, at this point, the demon just sort of spills his beans to Xanthus, and he's like, "Oh yeah, sure. I'm telling you all my plans. Blah blah." He doesn't actually say that he's a demon, but he basically makes it very clear. Okay, well, I have these plans for the city, and I'll get you in on these plans if you want. Like, that was the interesting was like Xanthus is sort of willing to make a deal with this guy, he wasn't exactly making like an actual deal. It was more like very and as you know, Silver put it, it was sort of like he's sort of being very gray about it. Like they're both being very gray about it. He's like, "Oh, here are my plans," and then he's like, "Okay, well, I think those are good. I'll follow you up on that. I'll help you out." But none of them were really formal deals. Like there's no formal deal. But he did in effect backstab the police, which is still bad. After that scene, um, oh, well, the important things from that scene basically that came out of it were that he realized, okay, um, Gillian, who's the landlord, was the one who messed with the werewolves. So he knows that for a fact now, and he actually got a beat for following up on that lead, because that was important. So now he knows, okay, the guys who messed with Ignisco was this guy. Okay. The other thing was he figured out, okay, I need to go after Naomi because they have Naomi. He doesn't know who has Naomi, but he knows about Naomi now. And he's like, okay, well, I have to figure out what's going on with her, where she is, and who she is, and possibly bring her back to this guy because that's what he wants. But Xanthus, technically, what he specifically said, Silver, he said, well, I have a bargaining chip now. If I find Naomi, I can hold it against him, which is good because I think that could be an interesting twist where, Xanthus wants to find Naomi, even though she's kind of already safe. I mean, that's kind of the only thing that makes it kind of weird is that she's already in Orfeo's like custody. So, what he's gonna protect her more than the guy who has supreme power within the city? Like, that's kind of doesn't make sense to me. Like, I don't know what Xanthus is gonna do when he finds her, because either he's gonna turn her in or just watch her. But Orfeo is already doing that, so there's really no room for that there. And I don't think Orfeo would want this random detective just snooping around and trying to figure out more about this girl. I don't really see that going anywhere. So then after that scene, we we had the whole scene with where they went to the like Otto went back to the police station, and John wasn't involved in any of this because he had left out of character. He had left by this point, so it was just Otto in the police station. Ignisco tries to track down Otto. Otto basically realizes that he's being tracked because he can sense that there's the werewolf nearby, or his senses tip him off to the fact that Ignisco's nearby. So he basically uses his blending to effectively turn invisible. Like, he can camouflage to the point where he seems almost invisible, even to magical senses, which we had a debate about. Because Andrew just loves to debate these kind of things where he's like, well, no, since it says here, you can't sense it supernaturally. Even if it was a passive supernatural sense, you would not be able to detect that he's here. And I mean, I think I had made that ruling before that, like, yeah, that's true. Like, it blocks supernatural senses, so you can't do anything about that. And it didn't matter, but it was just an argument we had. So then we had another argument about how, okay, well, can Xanthus just walk into the police station? Because he is technically a detective, and he's part of the case now. So why can't he just walk into Otto's office when apparently he's not there, even though he was sitting in the office invisibly? But the fact is, I didn't see any problem with Xanthus walking into Otto's office when he's like on the case and he's allowed to be in the office because he's waiting for Otto. Like, I didn't see any issue with that. But then Ignisco, when Xanthus opens the door to the office, he pushes an officer over and runs in. And what Carl does is he totally metagames because he knows that Otto is sitting in the chair. And I really shouldn't have. I probably realized in hindsight that I shouldn't have had Andrew describe out loud like where he was hiding, especially since it was like a sort of a PvP thing where Carl would have been able to know. So he ends up just trying to grab at Otto in the chair. And I'm like, how do you know? We had this another argument like, okay, so you basically just metagamed and like acted like you didn't you knew like where he was, even though you wouldn't be able to see him or sense him or anything because it would block out all the senses. I mean, technically it would. I mean, you could technically smell him, but I think it was a thing where it would block out senses, so I wasn't sure. And I already had said that it blocked out his sense of smell too, because then it'd be kind of pointless if it's like it's a camouflage that you can't see, but then why would it help you against werewolves if you could smell them too? I don't know. Because if it says it blocks supernatural sight, I don't know why it wouldn't just already block, normal human five senses, or even supernatural five senses. And all the rules failed anyway. So even if I gave him a chance to like try and sniff this guy out, it didn't work because he had gotten like 8 successes or something ridiculous. Principle was he tried to grab for him, and after having a debate for about an hour about how bad the metagaming was, I basically decided to tell Carl, okay, you know what, I'll give you a chance die, because he ended up with 0 dice anyway for the roll because of all the penalties for invisibility and all that stuff. So it was like, okay, you get a chance die. He got a 1. So first dramatic failure I've ever had in my campaign. What happens? The police all come in to the room because they were banging on the door by this point. They all come into the room, and then effectively Ignisco just turns into a werewolf. Luna sees literally everybody, so they all freak out and they all run away. The policemen, and Ignisco just jumps out the front door. And you're probably thinking, oh, well, I mean, what kind of consequence was that? Full-blown werewolf, just jumping out in the middle of the street from the police station, even though the police probably aren't going to remember most of that because of the lunacy. Eventually, they either A, might remember, or B, Valkyrie's probably going to start getting on his tail. And if not Valkyrie, then definitely, some kind of werewolf hunters are going to come after him now. He's not in hiding anymore. He's not, he's now made a public appearance as a werewolf. And that is never good for anybody. He might not be connected to his tribe or his pack, so the pack probably wouldn't be able to like oust him on this. But if they were around, they would, because this is a big problem. And now he is going to be hunted down in the near future, which isn't really something I planned, but it will happen now because he has basically opened the Pandora's box, so to speak, on that front. So, coming up next session, we have the actual break-in, which a few things happened with that. I'm probably gonna have to do a separate video on that session, because I had a huge amount of problems with that session, and I mean, I really do want to highlight all the problems I had with this session and why I'm ranting, because those were the things that really made this session bad for me, were the moments where I was just like, okay, I really hate this. And those kind of things made me feel like, okay, well, I didn't enjoy this session as much as I could have. And it could have been a lot better. And instead of leading up to this finale that I had been planning for a while, it really just felt like it fell sort of flat, in a way. Where, I mean, the big revelation with the villain sort of made it a little more interesting, but I feel like in that conversation I had said way too much, and it was almost like, okay, here's the entire layout for the rest of the campaign, for what he's planning on doing. Now, there's no more mystery anymore. So the mystery is now solved, and it's pretty much going to be all, just how you want to go about everything from now on. I think the only other mystery that's remaining is like what they're going to do with the werewolf packs, which we're going to settle at some point. But that's not going to be for another few sessions, so we'll see. But that's definitely something that's going to get worked into Chapter 2. I think it's going to be the park and discovering Otto's pack. I think that's going to be a big part of Chapter 2, along with the Mage Council, which I'm going to get to when I get to it. But yeah, next session's going to be the break-in. It should be a fun session. If it isn't, I might as well give up at this point. What can I do? I might just do another video on the recap for session 8, which it should be the 8th one. And then after that, I want to talk about the GURP session that I ran. The first 2 sessions, actually, because I haven't done a recap on those yet. So those will be coming up at some point when I have time to actually record them for now. I've got nothing else to say.